Welcome to First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, and whatever your life circumstance, you are welcome here.
Good morning. Each of us makes a difference. Each of us is helped along the way. Each of us is enough. We are the hopes and dreams of those who came before and those who will come after. We have families we're born into and those we've made. We are individuals made up of many races, creeds, colors, yet part of one humanity. Our prelude this morning is Woyaya. Words and music by Lofty Amoa, Solomon Armafio, Robert M. Bailey, Roy Bedeau, Francis T. Osai, Wendell K. Richardson, and Mac Tonta. It's hymn number 1020 in Singing the Journey. The prelude prepares us for worship.
We will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. But we know we will. It will be hard, we know. And the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. But we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. But we know we will. And we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. But we know we will.
We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope.
Thank you, Pam. Our opening hymn is My Life Flows On in the Endless Song, How Can I Keep From Singing? Arrangement by Adam and Matt Pod, featuring musicians and singers from Grace Choral of Brooklyn, First Unitarian Congregational Society of Brooklyn, and First Presbyterian Church of Brooklyn. It's a Quaker text. The melody is by Baptist minister Robert Wadsworth Lowry. It's number 108 in Singing the Living Tradition.
My life goes on in this song of lover's lamentation. I hear the reel afar off that hails a new creation. The strong and surely of the soul to that heart. Since the we live
Well, this morning we have a little technical difficulty in our story for the ages. So we are going to switch the order of service just a tad, and Pam will start her reflection first. We'll see if we can work out the technical difficulties for the story, and we'll do that next.
My name is Pam Yarbrough. I am biracial and bicultural. My father is Black and my mother is German. My extended family includes French, Italian, Yugoslavian, and Russian. I grew up during a time when there was much less diversity than we have today. There was only one flesh color in the Crayola crayon box and no multiracial boxes to check on school forms. Growing up, my parents didn't focus on race. Their lessons were, skin color does not determine your compass. Do your best, study hard, mind your manners, be nice and helpful, and don't use the word hate in reference to people. I will share a couple of experiences. One hot Oklahoma summer day when I was elementary aged, my mother took my sister, brother, and me to visit my aunt and uncle. Our visit included swimming in the pool at their apartment complex. We were having fun in the pool when we were asked to leave, not because we had broken the posted pool rules, you know, the ones that say no running around the pool, no horseplay, but an unstated rule. Even though our mother was European, blonde, and fair-skinned, my sister, brother, and I were the wrong color. Exactly what color? On that day, I was too brown. Other times, I was too white. I would get comments like, you don't look Black, you don't talk Black, or you have good hair, or you're high yellow, meaning that I looked more white than Black, or that I could pass. Or the all too common question, what are you? One day in school, my teacher told a story about a student who was mixed. Too white to fit in with the Black kids and too Black to fit in with the white kids. I was the only biracial student in class. I could feel eyes piercing through me, and as everyone stared in my direction. Maybe my teacher had a good reason for telling that story, but at the time, I was too uncomfortable to hear anything else that he said that class period. The first time I went to softball practice with a cousin on my father's side, she introduced me to her teammates, and they asked, why don't you look like cousins? Why do you have that kind of hair and she has the kind of hair she has? I knew what they meant. My cousin was quick to answer because she took after her parents and I took after mine. My first year of college, I attended OSU in Stillwater, Oklahoma on an engineering scholarship. One evening, my darker-skinned friend Deborah and I were walking in town when a school bus drove by and what appeared to be high school-aged youth stuck out their heads from the bus and yelled, "Go home, niggers." I'd never been called the N-word before, at least not that I had heard. Being able to pass for white often meant that I would be in a situation where someone made a racial remark, not knowing my race, like a next-door neighbor that I had just after I had graduated from college. I had moved into a duplex in Edgemere neighborhood in Oklahoma City. Shortly after I had moved in, the hubcaps were stolen from my car. When my neighbors learned of the incident, they said, "It must have been a coon," a racial slur rooted in the racial history of blackface. I hadn't heard that before. I had to ask my father about that. They followed that with the remark, "You know, we have to be careful about who we let in the neighborhood." Were they talking about me? I have many more stories, including raising my children, but that will be for another day. I am comfortable in my skin with my heritage. My experiences have given me compassion and strength. I am mostly encouraged by the diversity that I see today, the conversations and the hard work. I truly believe that we become more as we all work, live, and love together. We can grow and recognize our oneness. I pray that my talented, hardworking, and kind brown-skinned son gets home safely each day, that my beautiful and talented daughter is treated fairly. My heart jumps a little when I get a late night call. I pray that my grandson, now just the tender age of 2, held with so much love in this community, continues to experience that love as he grows into a boy, a teenager, and a man, and that he doesn't have to experience or have the experience where people hold their purses tighter or cross to the other side of the street simply because of his skin color. Thank you.
That was awesome, Pam. Okay, we're back to our story for the ages. And if Olivia is listening, is she able to put into the chat if she's able to open up the link? Okay, I think we'll go ahead and start. And Olivia, if you're listening, if you are able to pull it up, you can just let us know. And so Nathan, do you want to go ahead and start? We have a PowerPoint, but the words somehow aren't on the PowerPoint, so the audio, so we're going to do the words as we remember them from the story of our parents.
This is a love story about
a young man from America
and a young woman from Germany
who met and fell in love.
They traveled by boat,
by plane,
and by car.
And there they are. They had a family that grew
and grew
and grew. Here's a little bit of their story, and we're so sorry that you won't be able to hear it in their voices, but we will do our best to do the voices.
Sorry, Mom and Dad.
We worked hard practicing on all of that. So the first question was, what is a favorite memory from your childhood? This we asked our mom.
My mother shared that one of her favorite memories from childhood was her mom baking Christmas cookies. From the 1st of December through the month of December, every day my grandmother baked cookies.
And stolen.
She also remembered going to the Weihnachtsmarkt and looking at all of the beautiful things there and dressing up for their Christmas tree.
And another memory that she had was one of her favorites was going to visit her grandmother in the country. They were about an hour away from their home. They lived in a town in Germany. It was a bigger city compared to the town that they went to visit the grandmother in. But she loved the freedom of being out in the country, spending time with her grandmother, all of the things that a kid gets to do to explore nature. Those are some of her favorite memories.
And the last words that I remember her saying was that she loved the peaceful feeling there. So, Dad, why did you enlist in the Army? And what do you remember about your military career?
And he replied that one of the reasons that he joined the Army is because he loved to travel and he wanted to do more traveling. And also, it was a means of supporting himself and as part of his independence. We talked about some of the countries that he served in, and he served in Italy, Korea, Japan, Germany. Those were some of the places, and those were some of the highlights of his service. He enlisted 3 times in the service, and he was in for a total of 10 years. So, Mom, what was it like moving from a small town in Germany to a large American city, to a university city?
The first thing I remember my mother saying was, it was mostly a culture shock.
And they didn't live in Chicago very long. This was the first city that they were in. They moved to Champaign-Urbana, which is where my father went to school. And that to Mom felt a lot more like home.
Dad, tell us about finding housing when you and Mom moved to Illinois.
So my parents, this was back in 1958 or 59. Yes, 59. They were a young interracial couple and they were having difficulty finding housing. They kept getting rejected. And finally, one day, my dad found an ad from the chief financial officer of their university, and they had a room available or an apartment available upstairs in their home. So it was the husband, the wife, and their 2 teenage sons. And in quick order, they became very good friends. They loved the peacefulness of the place. It was kind of out in the country. There was an acreage there. It wasn't close to campus. That was the only downfall. But other than that, they said it was an ideal place to live. So, Mom, what were some of the racial issues you encountered?
The first incident that my mother mentioned was coming to Oklahoma City from Chicago. Her first time in Oklahoma City, the aunt and uncle who pretty much raised my father after his mother died at a young age came to pick her up in the train station. They went downstairs, they went downtown, sorry, they went downtown, looked around to see the sights, and went to Kat's, what my mother later found out was Kat's drugstore. She was hungry and told my aunt, I'm hungry and thirsty, let's stop and get something to eat and drink. So she proceeded to go in the front door, and my aunt said, we can't go in the front door. Blacks are only allowed to go in the back entrance. And my mother said, but I'm not black, so come on, let's go in the front door. So they went in the front entrance. There was space at the counter, so they proceeded to sit down. My mother ordered, they were served, and no incidents occurred. But my mother said it felt like she was on eggshells the entire time they were there. Everybody was staring. A black woman, an older black woman, a young black woman, and a baby brown child. It was not the rule of order in those days. A couple of other incidents my mother mentioned. One, she had gotten a job at a bowling alley at that time on Lincoln. My father worked during the day and my mother worked a couple of shifts in the evening. One evening she went to work and she was told, "I'm sorry, we don't need you anymore." And my mother said, "That's okay." She found out later that the management had found out that she was married to a black man and they would not allow her to work there. She later got a job at Western Electric and she mentioned that every day when she went to work, a lady came and she looked at her like she looked her up and down every day when she came. And one day she asked a friend of hers at work, she said, "Well, why is she looking at me? Like, do I have horns? What's wrong with me?" And the lady had told her that we hear that black men beat their women. Later, she and my mother became friends. They got to know each other, and she was okay with the race issue. So overall, my mother mentioned that she didn't feel threatened. There weren't times when she felt threatened, but there were many times when people stared, particularly when we went out to eat as a family. There weren't interracial couples at that time, so we would go to a restaurant, the local cafeteria, or boulevards around the corner from church, and everyone stared at us when we walked in. But after a while, they would speak to us, and our family was easy to place. Carmen, is there anything else you recall?
I think you said it pretty well, Pam. So our final question to our parents was, who helped you in life? And first to our dad, we asked him that question, and he said,
Mary Ann Cowderer Yarbrough, the person that I've been with most of my life.
And our mom said, John Yarbrough, who I have also known for most of my life. They've been married over 60 years. So that is our story for the ages. Now we have our call to offering. Every Sunday we take an offering. All cash and designated checks from that offering go directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work in our community, our Change for Change partners. This month, our Change for Change partner is the Lottie House Drop-In Center. Lottie House is a safe and welcoming place for adults impacted by mental health issues, homelessness, substance use, and co-occurring conditions. Their goal is to provide an environment of social support and education and to be a bridge to other community resources. While we listen to the offertory, you may wish to make a donation to our Change for Change partner using a credit card through our website, or this could be a good time to find your checkbook, write a check, and put it aside to mail first thing tomorrow morning. Let today's offering reflect our highest aspirations for the work of this church in the world. The offertory will be an original composition performed by Marcus Upshaw on piano. In the spirit of prayer and meditation, I offer these words from Julia Jackson, the mother of Jacob Blake, the black man who was shot by officers in the back 7 times. She shared these words when praying for her son, the police officers, and their families, and for, quote, all the citizens, my black and brown sisters and brothers. Everybody, let's use our hearts, our love, and our intelligence to work together to show the rest of the world how humans are supposed to act, how they are supposed to treat each other. America is great. Will we behave greatly? And in meditation,
I have a short meditation. First, I like everybody to move around. So pretend like you hear your favorite music, whatever that is. I invite you to move. You can get up and dance. I have just a small frame here. So again, stretch a little bit, get the blood flowing, move the energy in the body. So 5 or 10 seconds more of movement, maybe moving some part of your body that you haven't moved today, or moving it in a different way than you've moved it. Maybe your hips, your fingers. And then slowly invite you to come back to center, standing or sitting tall, lengthening your spine, getting as much space as you can between your hips and your ribs, allowing room for deep breathing. Close your eyes gently. Relax your face, your jaws. Relax your shoulders, lifting your heart. And slowly breathe. Inhale, allowing the belly to rise to the count 3, 2, 1, and exhaling down 3, 2, 1. Again, inhaling, belly rises 3, 2, 1, and exhale 3, 2, 1. Now taking your left hand, holding it in your right hand, bringing both hands to your heart and feeling your heart beat. Scanning your body from your toes, bring gratitude to your feet. For those of us that are able to walk, grateful for each step that we take. Gratitude for our legs to carry us through the day. Gratitude for our pelvic area, our creative center. Gratitude for all the organs in our body, our heart as it pumps to keep us alive. Our arms to reach out and hold for hugging. Our throat and voice for speaking our truth. Our mind for allowing us to think. Our ears for allowing us to hear. For our whole selves. They may not work as well as we want them to work, but gratitude for everything we have. Breathing that in, holding one another in this space, holding one another in our hearts, feeling the oneness in the heartbeat. Thank you.
time now for our reading.
This is an excerpt from my Opa's autobiography when he decided to leave home as a teenager. Still working, I began to save my money, and within several weeks, I had saved enough to purchase a Greyhound bus ticket to Topeka, Kansas, the capital of our neighboring state. to the north, which had a history of racial tolerance. I left in the morning and arrived during midday. As I recall, near the station, I was befriended by a young girl, Arlene, who directed me to a part of the town where I might be able to stay. And after that was arranged, finding a job was easy. But within days, Topeka, the state capital, had lost its lord. With independence, freedom, and no permission required, I moved on. My next stop was further north and across the river into metropolitan Kansas City on the Missouri side of the border. After a short ride, the bus pulled up to the station during mid-morning. According to my predetermined routine, after getting off the bus, the first thing I did was put my single piece of baggage into a coin-operated locker at the station, then study the telephone directory city street guide, commonly printed in those days. Next, I purchased a local street map and a daily newspaper, all of which I thought included enough information to guide me within the city. After a few steps and a deep breath, I looked all around at the sprawling metropolis compared to Topeka, and I said to myself, well, John Henry, this feels like the first day of your big teenager adventure. I knew of Kansas City via a Jay McShane's popular blues song, Well, I've Been to Kansas City, standing on the corner of 18th and Vine. A popular refrain was my clue for the location of a popular black neighborhood. So with my map, I began to zigzag my way to the intersection without asking anyone anything. As luck would have it, after entering the neighborhood, I noticed a two-story house with a sign, Rooms for Rent. I walked up the steps to the entrance, knocked on the door, and was greeted by an upper middle-aged lady who proceeded to interview me. But neither of her questions nor my response can I recall at this time. However, my future landlady must have been satisfied with whatever I said because she rented me a room right there on the spot. Surprisingly, nothing about my age was mentioned. The first night in my new abode, I studied the help wanted ads and the city street maps. By morning, I was ready to walk the streets looking for a job. This was in World War II, the last half of it, when there was a big shortage of manpower. As a result, there were help wanted signs all over the place. The first ad I responded to was for a busboy at the Mobac Hotel, perhaps Kansas City's finest at the time. It is said to have been a political headquarters for Harry S. Truman when he was campaigning for presidency. My only previous experience had been that of a busboy for several weeks at Oklahoma City's Huckins Hotel. It is now occupied by the current Renaissance Hotel. Busboys might have used carts at the Huckins, but I still learned to balance the large trays on one hand at shoulder height well enough for employment at the ritzy Mobac, at least at the time. Well, John Henry was experiencing independence, financial management, and all. Things were going along rather smoothly, both at work and where I lived. The different aspects of living alone were being experienced without any apparent problem. Then one Sunday morning, the landlady tapped on my door and said, "Someone is at the door to see you." As I had not made any friends other than Charles, my coworker, and the other roomer, I wondered who could know a John Henry living at 2526 Montgal. In any case, I went downstairs and on to the front door. To my surprise, I was greeted by none other than my Uncle Napoleon, who without fanfare said, "Come on, son, get your things and let's go home." And in response with my head down, all I could say was, "Yes, sir." And within minutes, Uncle Napoleon and I were on our way home.
Our anthem is Communion, words by Carol Davis Coss, music by Tom Benjamin. This was commissioned by First Unitarian Church of Oklahoma City for its centennial in 1993. Olivia Upshaw will be on vocals, accompanied by Diane Broyles on piano.
With the shining of our future, spread endless through our fingers floating on, and ignite our spirits floating to return. Like
A few years ago, you may recall a certain commercial showing an interracial family, a black man, a white woman, and their young child. This caused quite the to-do and backlash from some customers. In today's advertising, it's the in thing. And a couple of months ago, after the beginning of the recent protests, I noticed another commercial. Several scenes showed a black man in a public pool teaching his son to swim and others deciding not to get in the pool. Trying to get on the elevator and no one holding the door open or the button open until he could get on. Eating breakfast at a cafe and a young couple came in, not wanting to be seated near him, they asked for another table. Going into a clothing store and being watched. The camera then cuts to a court setting with the words, "All rise for the honorable judge." Do you wonder if our main character is the defendant? Well, he isn't. He is the judge. This is life in America and in other countries too, because of the color of one's skin. I, like you, like many of you, have had a little extra time on my hands, which has given me the opportunity to catch up on part of my book list. One, Malcolm Gladwell's book, Talking to Strangers, contains some interesting information as he delves into why our contact translations with other people are so bad. He states, quote, "Today, we are now thrown into contact all the time with people whose assumptions, perspectives, and backgrounds are different from our own," end quote. In contrast, he talks about the past. In the time of Christopher Columbus and his arrival in America, Columbus's views on indigenous people were based on how closely they looked like him. In other words, those with a lighter skin color were treated more favorably than those with a darker skin tone. He felt he could mold them into his culture more easily. I'm reminded of Native American children taken from their families and brought to government-run boarding schools from around the 1860s through the 1960s. Their hair was cut, their clothes were taken, their language was taken, all in an attempt to have them assimilate to Western culture and become civilized. This partially accounts for loss or near loss of many of the indigenous languages. We grow up learning from the experiences of those who came before us, our parents, grandparents, and past generations. Stories are passed down to us. And these are the things that shape us. Do we grow up hearing, "Stay away from them, they're not our kind"? Or are we taught to embrace our differences and accept people as they are? Do we learn by the interactions we see of our family members with others? You bet. And we aren't only limited to learning from the families we're born into, but also from the ones we form with our friends, our congregations, the racial, cultural, and ethnic groups we identify with. However, there is one greater than all of these, and that is our oneness with humanity. We are all connected. Like a bag of jelly beans, it takes each of us to make up the package. After seeing George Floyd's horrific death, Reverend Clarence Hill, a minister in Norman, Oklahoma, started a 12-step program, you may have read about it in the paper, called the Dream Clock. It was to start conversations, challenge racial self-awareness, and improve race relations. As a biracial child, I had the benefit of living in two worlds. My sister, brother, and I grew up in a loving family environment and were taught to treat people as individuals. We had friends of all races. I don't recall ever having an us versus them mentality. Each of us can do something to improve race relations. It might not be to the extent of my friend and neighbor, Terry Fife, who was showcased in a recent article in the Oklahoman. Terry stands every day at the corner in Northeast Oklahoma City, holding a sign that reads, "Mourning Black Lives Lost." She felt called to do this, stepping outside her comfort zone. Most, but not all, of her interactions have been positive, but they have filled her heart and spirit. You choose what resonates with you. Do you have friends of another race or ethnicity? Do your children? And by this, I mean not just knowing others at school or at work, but are you part of a diverse group that does things together socially? Do you have them in your home? Wouldn't we be better off if we realized we are all unique individuals who desire to be our best selves, if only we are allowed to do so? My favorite new book is by author Charlie Mackesy, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. It's a wonderfully written and beautifully illustrated fable about life. How to live one's life, what's important in life. While looking at the reflections in water, two of the main characters, the boy and the mole, wonder why we concentrate so much on the outside when almost everything that happens to us is on the inside. Wouldn't it be grand if we got past the outside and got to know each other on the inside? There is so much wisdom in this little book, so many life lessons. Here are a few quotes I'll share with you. Imagine how we would be if we were less afraid. I wonder if there is a school of unlearning. Sometimes just getting up and carrying on is brave and magnificent. In times of strife, we keep going. "What is the bravest thing you've ever said?" asked the boy. "Help," said the mole. End quotes. Connections and lifelines are everywhere. They often happen even when we don't realize it. They occur if we let them. Like when my great uncle Napoleon came to get my father that Sunday afternoon in Kansas City so many years ago. They happen with strangers and those we know. They are the protester marching beside you, the person of another color, the first responder, the one that doesn't think like you, or the one that does. We are the helpers and the helped. We are the lifelines and those reaching for them. We blend into the oneness of the universe, just like jelly beans. Blessed be. Time now for our closing hymn, "To My People," an ode to humanity. Empty Hands music. This was written and produced by Nemo Patel. Co-written by Chad Harper, aka Famous, and featuring Famous and Nick Dalton. To my people.
From the day that we were born, Mom hugged us with warmth, and we grew because we knew we had all your support. From the fams, the friends and love whose medicine keep giving us the strength to rise when we would sin, and the knowledge that we gained through every single mistake. But you never backed down through this, you taught me faith. Every single one of you, through being you, you do find a way to spread love and truth through me and you. And it's because of you I grew, because of you I flew, because of you I made it through without residue. Because of you we all have a home to come to. You're a blessing to us all, so keep just being you. To my people, yeah, you're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, and my truth. To my people, yeah, everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah, you're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me to help me go. To my people, yeah, I bow down to your heart of gold. First I think the universe, the infinite, the all. Kacha, Allah, whatever they be called. Then I think the ancestors, yes, our predecessors. The wisdom and the knowledge that they pass, so we bless us. Shot the Marcus Garvey, MLK, Malcolm Ghani. Bob Marley, Michael Jackson, Tupac, they remind me the power of the pen, the music and the voice. Everything we've done, let me know I have a choice. Now for my people, mom, pop, sister, the best friend, acquaintance, never cool, working, even if I don't know you, what you good, that you do. I'm see my way through silver space. Sharing on the way to my people, yeah. You're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, and my truth. To my people, yeah. Everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah. You're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me to help me grow. To my people, yeah. I'll bow down to your heart of gold, yeah. When I close my eyes, I always see learning souls who walk with me. They talk to laugh, they talk to love. You go to hug when push comes to shove. Turn the cheek, forgive, walk away. Tomorrow is another day. Life is short, helping hands to say. A holier than the ones who say. To my people, yeah. You're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, and my truth. To my people, yeah. Everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah. You're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me to help me go. To my people, yeah. I bow down to your heart of gold. To my people, yeah. My soul, your views, your family, my life, and my truth. To my people, yeah. Everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah. You're my soul, you're the one that pushes me to help me go. To my people, yeah. I bow down to your heart of gold. To my people.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community, which burns in our hearts.
My beloved, may you be blessed. May you have strength. May you reach out with a lifeline to someone. May you be whole. May you be enough. Namaste. Our postlude will be I Know This Rose Will Open by Reverend Mary Gregolia. It's hymn 396 in Singing the Living Tradition. Jess Huderman on vocals and piano.
I know this rose will open.
Please join us in the virtual coffee hour in about 5 minutes, Nathan. Thank you, everyone.